Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Federal Employee Road Less Traveled, turning your retirement worries into an excursion of a lifetime. And my co-host and author, financial advisor, Mark Fricks, has joined us again. Mark, welcome back.
Hey, great to be here, Jeff. Hope you've had a good week.
It's been a great week, and as we ended up our last session, we told the audience that we're going to be taking a road trip today.
Yeah.
So the retirement roadmap. So let's talk about that a little bit as you address it in your book. What does that mean for the audience?
Yeah, well, really, our entire company was founded upon those two words, retirement roadmap. We realized several years ago that they did not have a retirement roadmap. They had products and investments and pieces of a puzzle that didn't fit together, and that they should be starting off with first a roadmap and then plugging in what works. And so, as we began thinking about the basis of this new company 11 years ago, that became our key slogan, and it's what kind of the basis of the book. The book is all about how to create a retirement roadmap, and we even have a story that kind of tells the story of the book, if you want to put it that way. That we're going to tell today, by the way, and it's a very interesting story in the fact that it really makes a lot of sense from a standpoint of, why didn't we think of this before type of situation. So I think the listeners will enjoy not only the story, but what they're going to learn from it. And I think it will help stick. That's the reason I tell a lot of stories. It helps information stick, and it illustrates a point. And so I think this story today will do the same.
So in the book, you point out, traveling across the country, and California is in the analogy retirement.
Yeah, we call this the California road trip. Is the title of the story, and it's the reason I call it that is, of course, our base of operations is on the East Coast, in the Southeast, in the Atlanta area. And so, we call it the California road trip because actually, and this is part of where I came up with the idea, was several years ago, my daughter moved to LA and began acting. And so I had to take her car out to her. And instead of, paying to ship it or whatever, I just drove. And as I drove, I began thinking about how that related to retirement. So it all begins is because we're on the East Coast. I start off by asking the question. Let's say you decided you wanted to drive to California from Atlanta, and you just jumped in your car and you set the compass to west. Would you get to California? And Jeff, I present that question to you. Would you?
You would hope so, but I don't think it's that simple.
Right. And that's a good answer. I get a lot of answers. I get things like maybe, hopefully,
Right.
eventually, but I never get a absolute.
You could
Absolutely.
end up in Mexico. You could end up in Oregon.
It's not the way when I was 18 on spring break, yeah, we do that, right? But
Yeah.
I'm not
Not
18 and I'm not on spring break, so
right.
I would not do it. What I tell folks is I say, no, we're adults, and we're, we would have a plan. So what's step one of the plan? And step one of the plan is, let's think about where we're going. And in the story, we're going to California. So the questions I would ask before I left is, when do I want to get there? And so why is that important? Well, it tells me how, can I stop along the way? Do I have to drive straight through? Do I have to sleep or not sleep? So that's the first question. And so the relationship here is, and we'll be relating this throughout the whole story, is California represents retirement. So the first question you have to ask yourself is when do you want to reach retirement? When do you want to retire? It's not like you have to say I'm putting it in stone at age 64, but at least you have to have an idea. If you're in your 50s and absolutely if you're in your 60s, usually at least have an idea of maybe a time period, between 62 and 64 or something. But until you establish that, it's very difficult to create a plan. So, so that's kind
No,
of the first
absolutely.
question. Mhm.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
you have your destination, but what's next? There's a lot that goes into that. Okay, retirement. I see my map. What do you need along the way?
Well, before you can even do that, Jeff, you have to think about, okay, California is my destination, which represents retirement. Uh, how long am I going to be in California? Because I need to know how much money to have. I need to kind of plan on that, right? And so that relates to the same question with retirement. How long are you going to be in retirement? So you want to take a look at when you're going to retire. Let's say 60, and I could live to 90. So I may be in retirement 30 years. That's important to talk about. So we talk to our clients about life expectancy, their history, how long their parents lived, their grandparents, their uncles, aunts, and stuff like that. What's their health like? Another question would be, what are you going to be doing while you're in California? So that relates to retirement from a standpoint of what's your lifestyle going to be like? Are you going to buy a second home? Are you going to travel? Are you going to sit at home and watch TV? And the reason that's important is money. It's a lot more expensive to have a boat and jet skis and uh, travel the world and all that, as opposed to volunteering and watching TV and taking walks and hiking. And so we talk about that. We've got to talk about retirement and what that may constitute. Some people need more income in retirement than they needed while they were working because they're going to be, traveling more or doing something. So that's the relationship to California. So what are you going to be doing while you're there? So that establishes now a goal. Now we know where we're going. We know when we want to get there, and we know how long, what we're going to be doing while we're there. Now we can look at the roadmap, and so that's kind of that begins step two.
So you bring up a good point. I've had this discussion quite often that the traditional and the analogy for the roadmap works in this scenario that you plot and chart your way, and it looks easy. But in your book, you talk about what could go wrong,
Right.
and think about traveling across the country as an analogy. So let's talk about that. You make some good points in the book. What could go wrong along the way?
Well, before you can do that, Jeff, actually, you want to make sure you have one other step, and that other step is, um, planning the trip itself. Make sure your GPS is up to date. Make sure, do you want to take the northern route or the southern route? Do you want to stop along the way? Do you want to see the Grand Canyon? Do you want to, see the world's biggest, ball of string? Whatever it may be that you want to see along the way. And the reason that's important not to leave out is it's the same thing with retirement. On that road to retirement, whether it's 5 years away or 10 years away or whatever it might be, do you want to just batten down the hatches and save every penny, or do you want to enjoy the journey? Do you want to still travel some and take weekend trips and buy an RV or whatever? And so we need to know that. And so one of the questions we ask is, do you have any major expenditures coming up? What do you see yourself doing between now and retirement and stuff like that? So we need to make sure we include that, and things like where you're going to be staying along the way, and you're going to be staying in campgrounds or bed and breakfast and things like that. So that's all. And what are you going to be driving? What's going to get you to California? So that could be, again, when it comes to retirement, that could be, what kind of a tools are we going to use between now and retirement? Do we need to do more growing? Do we need to do more protecting of money? Do we, things like that? And so that's the relationship to that before we worry about what can go wrong, because that's until we've got a plan, we don't really know what can go wrong. And so that's important not to ignore the actual, trip itself for sure.
So the tools are the products and the resources that your firm provides to help make sure that you stay on that path.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then inevitably you could run into a flat tire.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I think would be 2020.
So Jeff, this is where your spouse looks over at you as you've done all this planning and says, "Honey, have you had the car checked out?" So what she's thinking is, what could go wrong in this trip to California, right?
Right.
What can derail this trip? Because maybe she's more of the practical, hey, I'm concerned type of person or whatever, and so we know what can go wrong on a trip to California. We can have a flat tire, we can break down, we can get lost, we can come across a road closure or maybe a huge forest fire. I mean, we're having that's happening out in California now. We could lose our credit cards or get robbed, and so we do things to help alleviate those things. Maybe we sign up for AAA. I'll tell you a quick story. When I was about 7 or 8 years old, we didn't take a lot of vacations, but we went to Florida for a week. And so I noticed as my dad was loading the car, he threw a tool bag in the back. And I said, "Dad, we're going on vacation. Why, are you going to be working on something?" He said, "Well, we might break down." So he was taking a step to make sure
Hmm.
that we were taken care of if that particular thing happened.
Right.
What's funny is we did. It wasn't funny
Yeah.
then, but looking back.
Yeah.
And so
That's a lesson that you learn to say, you know what, it could
be
happen.
prepared. That's right. So as it relates to retirement, now this is where it really gets interesting, Jeff, is on the road to retirement or in retirement, even in California, what can go wrong? And so you just mentioned it, 2020. I mean, who could have seen this coming? Now, by the way, I saw the market risk coming. We were due for a bear market, maybe not this year, but it was coming. You can't have a bull market forever. So I knew a bear was coming, but I didn't realize it would be triggered by something that was unprecedented, like the COVID-19. I mean, our lives have changed, and in some ways, probably forever. And so, but we anticipated these market volatility. And so, what else do we need to anticipate? We need to anticipate perhaps a higher inflation or a devaluation of the dollar in coming years. I mean, you can't print $2.6 trillion worth of money and not expect it to affect A, taxation, or B, the devaluation of the dollar. You can't, what about, if you've got a married couple, what if one of them passes away prematurely? How's that going to affect, that road trip or the time in California? So we want to start considering these things. I mean, the last I looked, there are 15 risks in retirement that could derail you. Now, some are out of our control, but we still want to think about them and see what can we do. I mean, some people come in and they tell me, I want my plan to not include Social Security because I believe Social Security won't be around. Well, I don't believe that, Jeff. I don't believe there's any way they can get rid of that program. Will it change? Absolutely. Could it decrease? Yes, but I don't think it's going away. But that's something they're concerned about. What about more severe volatility? You look at the last 20 years, the volatility is much greater than it was the 40 or 50 years before that, and I think that's going to continue. We're in a world market. Money and information flows in nanoseconds, and so volatility is greatly increased. And now we start thinking about how can you take income from a stock market account that's up and down and all over the place.
Right.
So we look at income differently. What if I'm trying to think of another what if? What about nursing home, long-term care? A lot of people don't realize that's not covered by Medicare. So it's on you. So how do you handle that? What about taking care of aging parents? What about taking care of kids that move back in? I mean, these are things a lot of people don't even think about. But very likely, many of these things could happen. I'll tell you the biggest one, Jeff, is the possibility, the extreme, almost guaranteed possibility of significantly higher taxes. I think if anybody thinks we're not going to see a lot higher taxes in the coming years, I think they're kidding themselves. 80 million baby boomers retiring. Again, printing money left and right. You can't get around it. There's no way. And of course, depending on who gets into Congress and into the White House and things like that too. So, and we want to give away more stuff. We want to pay off student loans. We want to give free college. Well, there's nothing free. Somebody's going to pay for that, and it's it's the middle class, upper middle class, and the upper class is going to pay for it, whether you believe they should or not. So And unfortunately, the average American is probably going to be hit the most. So these are all things we want to go ahead and say, what if this happens? What is our strategy? And that's the final piece of that roadmap, of the retirement roadmap we're talking about, is the what ifs. And those, so that we take each one of these things and we develop a strategy around it. And there's different solutions for each of those issues. Some we have to choose to maybe put on a lower scale, some maybe a higher scale, but all of them we consider. And that's why when we do a retirement roadmap with a client, and especially when we're working with a federal client, because of the additional complications and what if the pension, the FERS pension, were to be affected? By the way, there is scuttlebutt going around that they are looking at changing the FERS pension, and
Yes,
not
they
for the
are.
better. Have you heard that as well, Jeff?
Yes.
Yeah. So I
I
get asked
think
that a lot.
yeah, I
Mhm.
think they put it on the back burner this year with everything else going on.
Yeah.
But if they were thinking about it before, it's going to be a major issue after this election,
Yeah. I believe so too. So
no doubt.
that's something else we got to talk about. And with a federal employee, again, the retirement roadmap, we have to consider, do you take a survivor on the FERS pension? Do you keep the life insurance that the government offers? Do you keep the health benefits? There's positives and negatives with all of that, and it depends on that individual's needs, future, all of this kind of stuff. There are different ways to go for each situation, and so it can't just be a blanket statement. Hey, you should always do this and you should never do that. I hate it when I hear these radio shows and TV shows where they say, here's a formula for how much money you need in retirement. That's hogwash. It's
Yeah.
different for everybody, and it just drives me crazy. I call that investor pornography, by the way. Um,
Yeah.
Stay away from
Well, no, but yes, and you bring up a good point because I think that's minimalist thinking also
it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
when it
Yeah,
comes
I
to your
have people.
finances. So let's just get to the finish line. Well, when you were talking, I was just thinking about this may be a good analogy of what the trip you don't want to have happen. That would be Chevy Chase's summer vacation, right?
Yes. Or just vacation. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
you
To
end up in
Wally
Wally
World.
World. You
That's
don't
right.
want your retirement to be Wally World. It's closed down.
That's right.
So
That should
that
be
might
my
be.
opening music to these podcasts.
Yes. You know what? I'll do that. I'll go look it
Okay.
up. There's not a
Well,
copyright issue. Well, that'd be perfect.
I
Absolutely.
love it. Yeah.
So I was just thinking that, you get to St. Louis and fall asleep at the wheel.
Yeah.
There's that'll set you back a little bit. And I think he had his tire stolen. So,
And lose your luggage. Your luggage fell off the top of the car. I mean, we could go on
yeah,
and on, but
you could
yeah,
go on, but there's some analogies there, no doubt.
that's good. I like that, Jeff. Very good.
Well, I think it brings it to life. This is what I like about your book. When you're dealing in intangibles and finances, a lot of times, and the listeners out there can agree, some you don't want to deal with, some you don't want to really, but you got to do it.
Mm.
And I think bringing it to life and creating clarity in a mission and understanding in the analogy of the roadmap to get to retirement is really a great way to communicate what needs to be done along the way. So you need to check out Mark's book. We'll give you the details here in a second. So all right, so let's talk about our next episode.
Okay. Yeah. So chapter 2 of the book, as we discussed, we're kind of following the outline of the book. The title of the chapter is "What the Heck Just Happened," and of course, I wrote this book about 5 years ago, and we were in the process of updating it. But this chapter originally alluded to 2008. What the heck? I mean, who saw that coming, right? Uh, Unprecedented, as to what happened, and how much money people lost, except for the Great Depression. But and so what we're going to talk about is how to prepare for that. Don't fall asleep at the wheel, as you just mentioned. And we
Yes.
have we have tools to combat even that happening. But the best part of the next show is part of the illustration I use in that chapter is called Chuck and His Magic Underwear. So definitely need to tune into the next
Yes. Well, there's a
episode.
teaser for you.
That's right. And it's a true story. That's the best part. It's a true
Oh
story.
yeah. Yeah. So you don't want to miss that.
That's right.
You don't want to miss that. So how can attendees out there say, hey, I'd like to just start this process or go through a consultation, which you offer a no cost initial consultation. How's the audience get a hold of you?
Well, I think the website's a great way. It's masterplanretire.com, masterplanretire.com. Not only is there a short video in the beginning that kind of tells us what we do and how we do it, it's also a button on the first page that says, make an appointment. And you click on that, and my actual calendar comes up with whatever openings I may have. And I don't think you're going to get in this week or next. We're usually a couple of weeks booked pretty solid. So don't wait. But that's a great way to do it, masterplanretire.com. Um, it's also a good place to see our events. We have a lot of classes online and things of that nature as well. Another way is if you have your cell phone handy, is just text the word master plan, all one word, to the number 21,000, and immediately will pop up our contact page. And so, again, master plan, text that word to 21,000 is another really good way to contact us. Folks that still know how to use a telephone, 770-980-9262 is the number, 770-980-9262. You can also find that on the website as well. And you brought up a good point. The consultation is complimentary. You also receive a copy of my book.
Oh, good.
Almost all consultations we do via the internet. And really, it's just a chance, Jeff, for folks to just voice their concerns, their situation. I may be able to help them in just that appointment, but also those that attend the appointment, we will supply with 6 to 10 reports, depending on their situation, that will give them a much better picture of what their retirement looks like, are they ready, and what could go wrong. So that's something else that is complimentary.
The roadmaps.
Yeah. Or the building, at least what constitutes the beginning of that roadmap. So what
That's
could go
great.
wrong, right?
Yeah, and also another tool for federal employees out there. Check out fedchecklist.com. There's 12 questions you need to have answered before you make the retirement decisions. We've had a lot of positive feedback from federal employees on those questions, a lot you may not be thinking of. And then you can also download a free retirement worksheet, report, and budget that falls right in line with what Mark and I have been talking about. Before we conclude, you can also find Mark's book on Amazon, Mark Fricks, Fricks, The Road Less Traveled. So check it out on Amazon or get with him and get a free complimentary book also.
And
So,
I'll even sign it for them as well, which makes it worth $4
wow.
less.
You know what? That'd be a collector's item.
Yeah. Uh, you'd like to think so, wouldn't
Yes. All right. Great session today, Mark. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Enjoyed it, and look forward to everybody joining us next time. And as I like to always say, plan well and prosper.
Plan well and prosper. So look for the next episode. You want to hear that story to be uploaded soon, and we look forward to talking to each of you within the next week.
Very
We'll be
good.
back. Okay. Thank you. This
Thanks,
concludes
Jeff.
our session. All right. Have a great week, everybody.